So today we will be talking about something that's very important for entrepreneurs, which is mentoring and coaching. And so Scott is himself a leadership coach, and he will be talking to us about his experience as a coach and then also his experience as an entrepreneur owning his own business. So I'm going to have Scott introduce himself, and then I'll get going with the fireside chat questions I've prepared. And then if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and then we'll have a time towards the end where if you want to unmute and ask your own questions to Scott, you'll have that opportunity. So go ahead, Scott, and introduce yourself.
All right. So again, Scott Tafoya is the name, and I'm from Santa Clara Pueblo. That's where I grew up, and I have a background of being in ministry for over 30 years, primarily as a pastor, but sometimes doing other things leading up to that, I guess you could say. What else? Lots of education in my background from college and seminary, and a Doctor of Ministry degree in relation to the business world and the secular world, if you will. I have had the opportunity to own my own business. I owned a mobile auto glass business, fixing chips, but also then doing auto glass replacements as well. Did that for about 9 years. I have directed a nonprofit, directed a school of theology along the way. And then, of course, through the course of that educational journey, as I sought to improve myself, I discovered coaching, professional coaching as a profession, and made the decision to get certified and trained. And then in the process of that journey, decided to start my own coaching company and coaching practice. And so I've been engaged in that journey for the last probably 11 years now. And so got a lot of different experience in my life and in different things. Also had some experience in the direct sales industry along the way as well. So that's a little bit about who I am, and I'm looking forward to spending this time together this morning. I guess it still is.
Thank you, Scott. So the first question that I'm wanting to ask you, I think is a question that you've probably heard before, but what is coaching and what is mentoring? Because they're kind of similar, but they also are not the same thing. So
right. And I look forward to hopefully clarifying the difference. But coaching, first of all, okay, here's the definition for us to think about, and we can share this in the chat if we want to, or in different formats. But coaching is a focused relationship that cultivates a person's sustained growth and action. Okay, I know that's sort of a general kind of statement probably, but if I can expound on that a little bit, what I mean by the fact that it's focused is that it's very intentional. Okay, it's very intentional, which is similar to mentoring as well. Coaching is a relationship that you enter into with someone. Again, similar to mentoring, because you enter into a mentoring relationship with someone as well. It's not a casual kind of conversation or meeting that you have with someone. Both of those are very relational in their in what they are. But coaching is one that uses some specific skills that are geared to help the person that you're working with do a lot of work themselves, to do a lot of thinking, to do a lot of reflection, to do a lot of exploring of options, defining the goals that they have for themselves, defining the actions that they want to take for themselves. And so as they do that, there's a lot of questions, a lot of listening, even direct statements that a coach will make to the client to help them sort of stop and think about what they're saying and who they really are. Silence is a big part of coaching. A coach is going to listen probably 80% of the time and talk only 20% of the time. And so that's sort of the nature of coaching, but it ends up in a place where the person is taking action that again is driven by the person who's being coached. Okay, so that's a little bit about what coaching is.
So how is that different from mentoring then?
Okay, so the difference has to do with, I think, the fact that in a mentoring relationship, the person who is doing the mentoring is being an example intentionally with the person who is being mentored. Okay, and so they are agreeing that as they're going to come together, they're going to, that the mentee, the person being mentored, is going to try to be like the person who is mentoring them in some fashion. The mentor is going to pour into that person, maybe character traits or knowledge or even specific skills, but they're going to expect the person who is being mentored to demonstrate those in their lives. Okay, so there's an expectation that is set that is very, very much an example-based kind of relationship where the mentee, the person being mentored, is going to emulate what the mentor is offering. But the coach is not focused on being an example, even though they are. Their focus is to draw out from the person who's being coached what that person needs to do. It's very much, coaching is very much focused on helping the person being coached take responsibility for their life and for their goals and for their strategy, for their actions, and take ownership of those from beginning to end, I think you could say. So I hope that helps us to know there's a difference between the two. The mentor is pouring into the person with an expectation of getting out what they expect, in a sense. The coach is drawing out from the person who's being coached what the person who's being coached has identified as important for them.
Okay.
Okay.
So in your experience, what are some benefits of seeking out a mentor or a coach, especially when it comes to starting your own business? Why should someone seek out some type of guidance, whether it be coaching or mentoring?
Yeah, I think the main benefit of seeking out a mentor or a coach is the intentionality and the specificity. I shouldn't say that word that way. I'm saying it wrong. But the benefit is the fact that these can be very intentional relationships in terms of their purpose, and very specific relationships in terms of what the outcome of the relationship is, or even the outcome of a specific series of meetings together will be. So I think that's the main benefit in a nutshell. None of us have arrived. None of us can get to where we need to get to by ourselves, right? We all need time to grow. And so these extended relationships provide the time that's necessary. And so many times we just don't value, and we don't invest the time in those kind of relationships. And so that's some of the benefit involved in either of those kind of relationships.
How have you yourself benefited from either being coached or mentored as an entrepreneur, and then also just as a person?
Right. Oh, there's time is not, we don't have enough time, do we, to go into all the ways that any of us have benefited from these relationships or could benefit, but just looking at from the aspect of how I have benefited specifically from these kinds of relationships. Of course, I benefited in a general sense from what I would call unintentional mentoring, which we all have experienced, where we're observing, rubbing shoulders with other people as they pour into our lives through the example and through the influence that they have in our lives. One of those, and I don't know if you're going to ask for stories a little bit later or not, but I'll throw one in here. One of those early examples I had was when my pastor and I was helping him. He was a mentor of mine, certainly. And we had gone to a pueblo up north. We were doing vacation Bible school, and one of the cars had broken down, and as so often happened, he had to tow the car down from the mountains from where the pueblo was. This was up in Picaris, and back home to Espanola, where he lived. And so in the process of doing that, we passed another vehicle who had was on the side of the road, and I guess we had stopped to sort of check on him, and the person asked us for some gas or something or other, but we couldn't help. Okay, and so we continued on our way, and that person decided to follow us and started ramming the vehicle. I was driving the tow vehicle, and he was in the vehicle being towed, and he started ramming the car that was being towed. And so we get back home finally. This went on for a little while, but he finally quit. Well, we got home, and my pastor got out of the car, and he was shaking because he was so angry. And yet it was a controlled anger. And so it was a very vulnerable moment where I could see how a person needs to deal with those kind of raw emotions, and yet how he was able to control them. Of course, he made the statement, "I'm glad the person's not here," because he was so upset, But that's the kind of benefit that we get sometimes from mentoring. And I benefited in those kind of ways. As an entrepreneur, I think I benefited from watching my mom and dad. As I reflected on my time growing up, I realized my mom and dad were actually entrepreneurs out of necessity, because my dad began making pottery. He is from Santa Clara Pueblo, and so he began making the black pottery that Santa Clara is famous for. And my mom, who was from Mississippi, learned as a white person how to sand and polish the pottery. And so it was sort of a team effort, but that's how they supported our family, by making and selling pottery wholesale. And so as I reflected on that, I said, you know what, I've got some entrepreneurialism in my blood, you know, and of course, many family members are very well known for that kind of entrepreneurialism in the world of arts and crafts and pottery in particular. I've had the pleasure of being on a lot of phone calls with mentors through the John Maxwell team that I'm a part of, but also just through my whole training experience. Once I started to become trained as a coach, there was a lot of opportunities for me to be on phone calls with mentors who would speak into my life and try to give some wisdom that way. One of the other ways that I benefited from mentoring was when I engaged in my fast break auto glass business. It was a franchise opportunity, and the owner, as he was presenting me with that opportunity along the way, showed me a picture of a parking lot that was, of course, full of lots of windshields. And that illustration, I think, not only sold me on the opportunity that was there, but it's an example to me of the potential that is often out there or even in our lives. And he mentored me in that sense, because I remembered that illustration as an illustration of potential in life. And you know, as some other bigger benefits that I've gotten as an entrepreneur, again, a lot of times I received a lot of what we call pro bono coaching that through the course of my training, and I still do that, and that continues to help me along the way in terms of my intentionally pursuing my coaching company and making that a reality. But actually hiring a professional coach led me to decide to finally leave the local pastorate to focus on leadership development work more fully through my coaching company. I'd been on that journey for a while, and been wanting to do that for a long time, but having a coach in my life and working with that coach on that particular decision helped me to actually set a date to make that transition, and it continues to result in my in further decisions that I am making, that I have plans to take action on, to more fully engage in the work of my coaching company. So having a coach in my life has really benefited me in a lot of my personal growth, in a lot of my potential that I've seen, and the actions that I've taken.
I think oftentimes entrepreneurs, especially sometimes when they're starting out, might feel like alone. I've heard that from multiple entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, that they just feel like they're going on this adventure alone and they don't really know, they don't have a community of entrepreneurs or like necessarily someone to turn to. And just from what you're saying, I feel like having a mentor or coach might help you feel less alone on that journey and like you have support. Um, so I'm just wondering if there have ever been any times in your life or in your experience as an entrepreneur where maybe you did feel alone, or where you felt like, I wish I had someone to guide me, or maybe hindsight, if you had had a mentor or coach at a certain point in time, maybe it would have helped. I'm just wondering if maybe there's any experiences that you've had where you might have felt that way.
Right, right. Well, sometimes it is a lonely kind of journey, just life in general, right? We're trying to navigate life and navigate decisions, um, and ultimately we come to the point where we have to make the decision ourselves. We have to take ownership of that decision, take responsibility for it. Nobody's going to make those decisions for us, but at the same time, it is so helpful to have somebody in our life that can help us do that, and we don't intentionally invite people into our lives to do that often enough, and we don't reach out sometimes to invite others to receive mentoring or coaching from us, so that they can not feel so lonely. But certainly there have been some times where where I would have benefited and wished that I wasn't so alone, so to speak. One of those was about, I guess, 10 years into my ministry. I had to make the decision that I wasn't going to be able to continue to stay in the ministry full time. I had to go find another source of income. Um, and it was at that point that I ran across Shannon Smith, who represented Fast Break and owned a franchise of his own. And so I was able to make that decision. But a coach, if I had had a coach in my life at that point, I think that coach would have invited me to give myself permission to look at all kinds of options at that point. I'm glad that I did Fast Break. I did that for about 9.5 years, and that was good. But I would have had some options. Another time, boy, a major turning point in my life was when I decided to leave my home church that I was pastoring. I pastored my home church right out of seminary for about 6.5 years. And my pastor and his wife retired after 27 some years in ministry there in that church. They were my mentors, but they felt led to stay as part of the church. And I could not fault them for that, but I didn't know how to handle that sometimes. And so if I had had some specific general education about leadership specifically and what that was, and if I had had some extended mentoring and coaching related to that decision, I might have, and in hindsight, I wish I had stayed in that role instead of leaving. but I thought that that was sort of my only choice. And if I'd had a coach or a mentor or both in my life because of the different skills that they bring, it would have benefited me possibly in coming to a different decision. But those are the kind of decisions that we all face as entrepreneurs. And sometimes we make them by ourselves because we feel like we don't have a choice. But if we had someone who was intentionally in our lives by our own choosing to help us navigate those decisions and help us to grow in our lives as we needed to through the process, I really believe it would make the world of difference.
It sounds like, to me, just listening to you, one of the benefits of having a mentor or coach is just not only not feeling alone, but kind of having that other voice speaking to you. Because sometimes, especially when you are starting your own business or kind of pursuing this thing, you're always thinking and up in your head, and sometimes it's good to have that other perspective to kind of help you see things differently, or maybe say, this isn't working, how about try this? And I could see that being a huge benefit of having a mentor or coach, because the truth is having people, like you said, pour into your life, or kind of draw out what's already inside of you, helps you to reach your full potential. So I could see that helping like entrepreneurs not only reach their full potential as individuals, but help their businesses reach their full potential by having that outside perspective and advice.
Absolutely, because the two are tied together.
Mm.
You know, if we're not growing, our endeavors are not going to grow or reach the levels that they need to reach.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hit, there's John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid when he talks about leadership and our potential. And he said, if the lid of your leadership is, say, at a 6, and that's where it's at, and you don't intentionally choose to improve that, to grow, then your potential is only going to come up that far. It hits the lid. But if you will grow in your leadership specifically, then your potential is going to rise. And so we need to grow in our leadership. We need to grow in our skill level in whatever area of industry we're at. We need to grow in our knowledge in specific areas. And so that whole concept of growth, you know, if we're not growing, you know, our potential is capped by our growth. We're stunted, not just in our growth, but in our potential.
So I guess the last question I want to ask, before wrapping things up and opening it up to any questions that people listening in right now might have. My last question is, how could someone go about seeking out a coach or a mentor? Are there specific steps they should take or things to keep in mind when looking for someone who might be a good mentor or coach for them?
Yeah, let me give you some things to keep in mind, and then I will also give you some ideas of where to look for both mentors and coaches. Okay, one thing to keep in mind is to identify what your needs are. In both of these kind of relationships, you're going to need to do some reflection and say, okay, what do I need? Okay, and do your best to do that. And sometimes the coach or the mentor can help you to become more aware and to identify what those needs are. But if you can do some work on your own ahead of time, then that will help. Secondly is identify who your mentor and coach or coach needs to be. You don't have to just pick the first person who comes across your life. Think about who they need to be. Think about their personality, the approach that they take, your comfort level with them. Are you guys syncing, connecting in a positive way? Are they able to connect with you and or challenge you? Okay. And at the same time, are they willing to be open with their own journey as well? Are they willing to allow you to speak into their life occasionally as well? Thirdly, find the mentor or coach that meets your needs. Okay. Again, that was sort of related maybe to the first one, identify what your needs are, but find the mentor or coach that meets your needs. And it's okay to have more than one of each, because you're not going to meet with them every day, maybe not even every week. Okay. So it's okay to have more than one mentor, more than one coach with certain specialties that you're working on possibly without getting overloaded. Number 4, ask specific questions when you come together. Ask specific questions, especially of your mentor, that's related to your specific area of growth. Okay. And the same thing with the coach. You're going to work on specific priorities that you've identified. Number 5 is have a specific outcome for your session together or your relationship in general. Okay. Again, neither of these relationships has to be for life. Okay. They might just be for a season. They might just be for a few months, maybe longer, but it's good to have a specific mutually beneficial outcome from the relationship. When you come together, be ready to share what solutions that you gleaned from your last session have worked for you, because your mentor and your coach are going to expect to hear that. And then lastly, maybe most importantly, make time in your life for these kind of relationships. I'm confident that I would have been further along, and I'm thankful for where I'm at, and for where I'm at, but I would have been further along if I'd had these kind of intentional, specific relationships in my life. In terms of where to find a mentor specifically, okay, look around your life. Look for people in your life or in your industry, maybe industry organizations or associations that, for people that are being good examples, people that that you might want to be mentors in your life. And again, hopefully they're looking for people who are interested in being mentored as well. Maybe there's organizations that you're aware of that are looking for actively for people who are willing to be mentored. Make a list. Start making a list of potential mentors, because again, you will likely want to have more than one in your life over the course of your life. And so you might be ready to move from one relationship into another as time goes on. And I would just want to make you aware that I am certainly available to you through my work as a tribal liaison and through my coaching company, even in terms of mentoring and some of the mentoring type of work that I do through my coaching company. For coaches, I would encourage you to find your local International Coach Federation chapter. And if you can't find that, you can just look online for their website. They actually have a guide that you can make use of to help you find a coach. They give you some guidelines and some principles to keep in mind. And so that is available that we'll share with you in the chat. I'll just go ahead and copy and paste both of these here right now if I can get that done. And the other one is through my organization that I'm affiliated with through John Maxwell. You can actually, if you're interested in finding a John Maxwell certified coach, you can go and search for a coach through that organization as well. And then, of course, again, I'm also available through my tribal liaison work and my truth dancer coaching work to provide some of those sources and that kind of specific help for you as well. And and then maybe in closing there, I would just say, feel free to interview one another as you're looking. You know, feel free to do that so you can determine if it's a good fit for you or not. But I'll put those these other specific links. I see that somebody else, Stacy, and others have put some other links in there. And I thought I was copying and pasting the link as it were, and I don't know why that didn't work, but I'll try that again. Go ahead, Cecilia.
Thanks, Scott. So as Scott mentioned, there's a lot of different opportunities for you to find and start working with a mentor or coach if you think that's something that might benefit you. And believe me, I think mentoring definitely and coaching definitely does benefit entrepreneurs. We have one of our mentors for UNM Rainforest Innovations here on the call, Stacy Sacco, who does monthly mentoring office hours. So he's a good way if you kind of just want to dip your toes into having a mentor. That's a good way to start. Stacy has in-person and virtual office hours. And then we have a variety of other mentors with UNM Rainforest Innovations. Again, just to kind of dip your toes in a 30-minute session to see if they're the right mentor fit for you. We have upcoming ones that I included the links in the chat with Matega Lee, and then Susan Cornelius has upcoming office hours as well. And then we do host SCORE mentors in person here at the Lobo Rainforest building at the end of every month. So there's those opportunities. And then also Scott is not only a mentor, but he's also a certified coach. So if you're wanting to go more in depth and down the coaching path, he's definitely a great resource for you to reach out to. So that's all I have. Those are all the questions I had today. I just wanted to make the case for mentoring and coaching for entrepreneurs because I know the entrepreneurs we've all worked with who have attended our office hours have always greatly benefited and have great feedback about that experience. So I would highly recommend seeking out a mentor or coach, especially as an entrepreneur. So thank you, Scott, for sharing your insight and your experiences, both as an entrepreneur and then also as a coach. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and you see those links that I did get. The active links actually got pasted in the chat, and so the first one is in relation to the first source that I mentioned there. Okay.
Awesome. Well, if anyone in the audience has a question, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. And if not, we'll probably wrap it up here.
Cecilia, this is Stacy. Can I make a quick comment or question in there?
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Yeah.
It's funny. One of my best mentors in my life was one of my uncles. But I love your comments that and that was sort of backwards, it's just an uncle who loved me. And so I would ask him advice. But I love your comment of there's sources out there where you can more proactively say, hey, I need somebody, and go to that. So I love your resources here. And I was curious if I did have a couple of my clients through the rainforest who said they would like to be certified coaches. So where do you get your certification, and did you find that was of value to you to get connected? I know there's a National Speakers Association here to connect you to speaking, but I used to belong to one in LA, and my God, I'd have lunch with Tony Robbins. And so they were connecting you to projects all the time. Here it's a little less, but that may be because of the pandemic. But I'd be curious, where did you get certified, and that process?
Yeah. I've had exposure to a number of different coach training programs specifically, and there's a number of those out there. Of course, the first one that I was exposed to was sort of a part of my doctoral program. It wasn't a certified coach training program, but I took one of my electives there was on coaching, and then I actually got exposed to the coaching program that Henry Blackaby does in the church world, that trains coaches through that venue. But then I got my actual certification through the International Coach Academy. I tried to, you can actually, through the International Coach Federation, you can do your own personal journey of training on your own if you want to, and it's sort of a self-paced kind of thing. But as I began going down that road, I said, I really need a program so I can see the end in sight and get it done. And so I did the International Coach Academy, which was accredited by the International Coach Federation. And again, just going to the International Coach Federation, they can point you to programs that are certified with them. And again, you can explore those to see which one fits as well. And then again, after I got certified with them, I found the opportunity with the John Maxwell organization and got certified with him as one of their coaches. And so there's a lot of ways to do it.
So thank you. And it's funny, I went to a conference in Orlando, sat next to, there was like 2-3 seats open. I sat next to this fella, and as I looked over, I thought, oh my God, it's John Maxwell.
That's
How
right.
did I sit next to him? Nice,
That's
greatest guy. And I've read a couple of his books. You've got the right guy to talk about there. I love that. So thank you.
Oh yeah.
So the only other thing was, there was a woman, Isabel Partlet, up in Santa Fe, who was, when I first moved back to New Mexico, offered a workshop through UNM Continuing Ed on how to become a coach. And so she talked about, she had like a notebook for each of her clients. And I was curious, and then she would meet with them up front and do this like 4-page survey to assess what their needs were in what area. And then they'd put together plans around that. And I just thought, is that kind of what you found that works? And do you have notebooks for each of your clients, or how do you do that?
I do have files for each of the clients, and I have certain forms that I will send to them to have them fill out. I have assessments that I can make use of with the clients as well. And so as I work with folks, I can build files. I like taking notes when I'm working with clients, just because I want to capture the important things that they are talking about, so that we can come back to those as they want to. Again, if you're working with a client and they express something that's important to them, and you don't come back to that, or you let that go, you've missed an opportunity and you've failed your client, because you want to work on what they have expressed is important.
And what would you, I'm sorry, there is one more question. If I wanted to work with you or another coach, what are some typical fees that people charge? Is it like a retainer per month, or is it per meeting, or per great idea?
Yeah, it depends on the coach. Some coaches are going to be priced at different levels, you know. Sometimes it depends on their clientele, you know, like you mentioned, Tony Robbins or John Maxwell. I probably couldn't afford to be coached by either one of them.
Oh yeah, there's no, I don't make
You
enough money for that one.
But that doesn't mean that you can't find one that's in your price range.
Right.
A lot of times they will offer coaching packages of some kind. I typically will offer a coaching package of about 6 sessions, and then the payment for that gets handled in different ways. Sometimes it's you pay for the first half up front, and then you pay for the second half as you go through. It just depends on the arrangement that you agree to with your particular coach. But again,
Okay.
I would just encourage folks not to hesitate to make the investment, okay? And to keep in mind, you can probably find someone in your price range if you're diligent enough in looking. And a lot of coaches will offer even the first you know 2 or 3 sessions pro bono to give you an experience of coaching, to help you to understand what it is and how you can benefit from it.
I was going to
So
say a lot of the
Scott,
small businesses I work with do have a coach. Boy, I hear just wonderful stories about all their coaches and how they've really helped them move things forward. So I'm sorry, Cecilia, but
oh
anyways.
no, you're fine. There's just a question in the chat from Douglas. With respect to coaching, his guess is that there are many varieties, business, life, skills, the arts, etc. Should one think hard about finding someone relevant to your imagined or actual niche, or are general coaches also good and relevant? For example, you may think you know what to zero in on, while a coach may perceive other avenues, opportunities, skill sets, etc. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as with a lot of professions, coaching has specialty. So like with myself, I've chosen to focus on leadership, okay? So I can do leadership coaching that's focused on that. Again, everything driven by the client. I can also do spiritual coaching as well because of my background in that arena. And so we can do work in that specific area. And so when a coach does that kind of specific work, again, it's not that they're providing answers from themselves to the person being coached related to that, but they have an awareness about the area. And so that helps them to ask better questions, or to connect better with the person being coached in that particular area. So I would encourage you to find someone who has that niche. However, okay, the very nature of coaching is that it is driven by the person who's being coached. And because the fact that they are setting the agenda, our job as a coach is just to listen and to be aware and to help them as they find their way. And so as we're working with them, there may be other areas that come up that they want to work in. There may be other goals that they want to work in. And sometimes those goals are overlapping to where they impact multiple areas of life. And so any coach worth their salt, okay, is going to be able to work with anybody who's willing to enter into that kind of relationship, because it's not about them, it's about the person being coached. And that really changes the ball game in a lot of different ways.
I would also add to that that sometimes, especially just from what I've observed by managing our mentoring office hours, is sometimes people who meet with our mentors, maybe it's not someone who they would have sought out originally, but they learn something that is useful to them. So sometimes you might have to shop for a mentor, shop for a coach sometimes until you find the right one for you that really you vibe with and that is gonna benefit you the most. But I would say most mentors are experienced in their field, but they're also experienced in life.
Right.
And they are mentors because they want to help and they want to give back. So even if maybe they're not the right fit for you, having that first session is helpful, and then they will most likely be able to connect you to the right coach or mentor if they're not the right fit for you. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Make like I said, a lot of times when I think of the help that I offer folks, I say, don't make the mistakes I made. Okay. Take the step. Don't put it off. Okay. This is an area, after 62 years of living, that we don't need to just say ready, aim, fire, or ready, aim, ready, aim. We need to pull the trigger on this. And even if we don't find the perfect fit to start off with, just connect with somebody and make this a part of your life.
Well, thank you. I don't know if anyone else has any more questions before we get off, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, Scott, and also Stacy, for jumping in. You guys are both great coaches and mentors, and I will say Scott's background in coaching is what led me to ask him if he was interested in being a liaison. So there's a lot of value he brings to the table in working with him, whether it's as a liaison or as a coach or mentor. So thank you for your time and for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.
Ask one last question, Scott. I'm curious, what books are you reading that you'd recommend? I know all the John Maxwell series is amazing, but is there anything that you read that helps connect you to what your goals are? I always love to ask people that.
Right. And one of my challenges again is making time for that.
Right.
And right now I've got a few things on my plate, too many things on my plate that's keeping me from doing the reading that I would want to do. But I do read some John Maxwell stuff, of course, as I go along. I did did finish a book not too recently that dealt with our Native American history, if you will, some of the cultural, anthropological kinds of things, so that was very interesting. And got other books, as you can tell, on my shelf that I would like to read or read again, but just that challenge of finding the time to do that, and I know that's a poor excuse, but I need to watch less TV.
No.
That's
Oh my
my
God.
problem too. Netflix is a time killer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you all at the next Fireside Chat, which will be next Tuesday, I believe, on Resonomics. So that one will be focused in on our liaison, Zachariah Ben, and his experience starting a business on tribal land. So thank you, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.